This is tonight's MindMatters webinar. So happy to see all of you here joining us in today's webinar. So today is a very special topic. We are going to look at the power of psychosensory therapies. What does that mean? I think it's really all about the mind-body integrative healing. And this is a growing field that has garnered a lot of interest, from all the participants here tonight to see how we could harness the power of the body-mind connection to be an alternative form of treatment modality for people. So I'm very, very pleased to introduce our speaker very shortly and to also welcome everybody to tonight's webinar. Allow me to share a little bit about myself and what I do here in the Academy. So my name is 𝐸𝐁𝐄. I am the Executive Director of Architects of Life, also the co-founder of Breakthrough Academy and Therapy. So this public webinar is part of a series called MindMatters and is organized by Breakthrough Academy and Therapy, which is a subsidiary of Architects of Life. So primarily, we focus on training, equipping, counseling, and therapeutic treatment. And of course, just a quick disclaimer, everybody. So this is educational in nature. Whatever is shared is primarily from the speaker's perspective. So it's not to be taken as like a prescription or advice or even substitute treatment of any kind. And today, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our speakers to all of you. We have Glenn, who is our moderator and speaker, who's going to help give an overview and about psychosensory therapy and how this is used in the treatment of trauma, stress, depression, etc. And after that, we will have Dr. Harold Roberts, our keynote speaker. He comes with many years of experience in this field to talk about it being a treatment modality and the benefits of it. We regret to inform that our last guest practitioner, Ms. Elaine, she's unable to join us tonight because she's not feeling very well, and she has tried to rest, but still not feeling too good. So she sent her apologies to everybody here tonight. But not to worry, Dr. Roberts has lots to share, so you have more time to listen to his presentation. Okay, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, none other than Glenn, who is the co-founder of Breakthrough Academy and Therapy. He's also a psychotherapist and breakthrough coach. He has been specializing in trauma-informed treatment using a variety of modality, including his signature energy defragmentation therapy. He's also a TA, transactional analysis practitioner, and does a lot of counseling and psychotherapy work. So please join me to give him a big round of applause to welcome Glenn.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our current MindMatters webinar together with 𝐸𝐁𝐄. I've had the great privilege of co-founding Breakthrough Academy and Therapy, especially during this last 2 or 3 years during the pandemic. And every other few months, we kind of launch a campaign on MindMatters. This month is very special because August is the International Month of Wellness. And so what better and more fitting way than to introduce to us this really new and I would say trending topic on psychosensory therapy. So thank you, 𝐸𝐁𝐄, and for all of you who have tuned in. I'm not the keynote speaker. I'm just the precursor to Dr. Harold Roberts, who's our keynote speaker. And I want to tell you already beforehand that he's packed with a lot of information. Is to me one of the most insightful lecturers out there. I won't be talking too much, but I think I want to give an overview of what psychosensory therapies are. I'm a practitioner myself in various modalities, and maybe it's possible, let me just start with what is a psychotherapy? What is this approach all about? What is this term psychosensory therapy all about? I've got a bit of a definition right here. It's summarized and it may not do justice in its very simplistic explanation, but I think some of the key tenets are there. So PT or psychosensory therapy is really a treatment approach that combines psychological techniques with sensory stimuli. So there you have it, the two integrated words of psychology and sensory. utilizing the sensorial or the sensory experience to treat a client. It involves the use of body sensations or senses and physiological responses to effect change to the client's psychological well-being. So I guess the key thing that undergirds this term psychosensory therapy is really the intent of the usage, which is to treat at a psychological and emotional wellness. It's not just all about touching and tapping and eye movements, but integrating the two, but understanding that there is firstly a sensory input, a stimulus, what we call the experience. We all have five senses. And so with that input or that stimulus, we use it in a therapeutic form. So examples of psychosensory therapies are like TFT, thought field therapy, EFT, very much practiced in the Asian parts of the world, emotional freedom technique, EMDR, we know it, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, brain spotting, also in the last 10, 15 years, this has kind of surfaced as a very efficacious therapy. And then, of course, there are other areas like that involves manual or touch therapy. So like CST, craniosacral therapy of late, PV, polyvagal therapies. So all these come under the umbrella of psychosensorial or psychosensory therapies. I might want to add as well that it could also extend to movement-based therapies like dance, yoga, art therapy, music therapy. Certain forms of these expressions of sensory or sensorial expressions can also be considered as psychosensory therapies if the intent again is for psychological, emotional well-being, for treating trauma, and it must and always includes talk therapy as well, because you need to process and be reflective about the whole treatment process as well. Yeah. So maybe at this point, what is best is to also bring about a balance. What is not considered psychosensory therapy? Otherwise, anything that has got to do with your five senses can easily be mistaken as psychosensory treatments or therapeutic in nature. So here are broadly a few classes of different approaches that most therapists and clinicians would not consider as psychosensory therapy. Firstly, meditation type or based exercises. If it's all about mindfulness, calming yourself down with some visualization that are purely awareness-based, then it's merely an existential or a humanistic approach to I won't even call it therapy, much less psychosensory therapy. Number two, manual treatments. I mean, there must be a line somehow, right? It's definitely not spa and massages if that's what you're thinking about. It's not therapeutic in nature, although physically it does relieve stress, tension, maybe even headaches, but those will be classified as manual work. Chiropractics, physiotherapy, even TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, would not be considered in its pure form psychosensory therapy. Number three, diet-based treatments like Ayurvedic diet plans, herbal remedies, all these in and of itself is great, maybe even supplemental, complemental, but it's not psychosensory therapy. And then of course, we have the controversial types like other alternative healing, energy work, Reiki energy, Qigong, chakra healing, all these, well, first and foremost, they may lack certain evidence-based literature, they may lack clinical studies. So we would consider them as quasi-alternative healing. Again, nothing wrong in and of itself, but we will not group them under psychosensory therapies. So I'm just giving an overview. Dr. Harold Roberts later on will go slightly deeper into the science, into the scientific literature. And I think during the end of this session, which is only about 1 hour, during the Q&A, please shoot your questions, okay? I think what really has helped psychosensory therapies come to the forefront was because of the pandemic. And in even the last 5 years, there's been a spotlight shine on this approach by celebrities, Justin Bieber being a very prominent celebrity that was using the havening technique. Lady Gaga herself disclosed that she had mental health issues and she does a lot of meditation-based yoga and movement therapy. Prince Harry himself swears by bilateral stimulation. Down here, he's seen as doing the butterfly technique. And of course, Jim Carrey, long time user of art therapy, art-based healing work for himself because of his mental health issues. So all this came to the forefront, and that is what makes psychosensory therapy one of the more popular modalities during this time. I just want to end my presentation by sharing a little bit of my own experience. Those of you who know my story, coming from a very disadvantaged background as a rebellious teenager, so I'm very used to counseling, talk therapies. They had a case manager and a case management team over my case when I was growing up. I went to see a school counselor and even outside, went for pastoral counseling as well to a church. Nothing really worked for me until much later in adulthood when someone, and he wasn't even a accredited practitioner, but he had learned EFT before and he decided to do something on me. And of course, I allowed him, gave him permission to. So kind of a EFT, TFT type of work was done on me and immediately responded to it positively. I was able to tap even to my traumatic past. What talk therapy failed to do for me, because it's just talk and talk and talk, once it activated my senses, particularly in the area of my body, because I still believe in this. And today, as I work with my own clients, I realize that trauma is indeed embedded at the physical and body level. So to assess those deep-seated, deep-rooted wounds, one needs to enter the physical, the physiology as well. You can't just talk, right? So that was an area that really found me breakthrough. And of late, in the last 3 years, during the 2020 pandemic, I also experienced a little flashback, a re-triggering. We call that residual effect. I felt very agitated. Emotions are always a gateway to understanding what's happening deep in your subconscious. So I consulted my professors again, and I went for certain mindful retreats and I got myself mentored all over again using psychosensory approaches. And that really helped accelerate my own personal healing. I've actually shared that at 1 or 2 webinars the last few years, maybe a little bit more about that offline. But I wanted to share with you that I truly believe in psychosensorial approaches and treatments. And I think to give us more insights into this, I would like to right now introduce Dr. Harold Roberts. Dr. Harold Roberts is no stranger in the clinical world in Singapore. He is a USA-trained clinical psychologist and psychodynamic therapist. And of course, at least to me, he's known as I use the word godfather of neurosensorial and psychosensory therapies. He has 30 years of professional experience, and he has taught and supervised at doctoral and master's level at tertiary institutions. He's certified in a whole suite of different modalities, a large chunk of that based out of neurosensorial orientation. So it gives me great privilege and honor today to call upon my own lecturer, professor, supervisor, Dr. Harold Roberts, to take the stage for this keynote segment of this webinar. So Dr. Harold Roberts, over to you.
Hi, Glenn.
Yep.
Well, you've got many kind words, but thanks for inviting me. I'm still a learner after all these years, and I keep searching and seeking to learn new things. And there are a number of new things appearing progressively from around the world. I'm trained as a traditionalist. I'm trained in the major modalities of psychotherapy. And for a long time, I was very resistant to anything beyond the traditional. Spent 7 years in the US, did clinical work there, came back in '92 and been practicing in Singapore for over 30 years. But the resistance began to break down when I started to also realize that I couldn't treat effectively clients with acute trauma. It could be helped, alleviated. And the couple, the best friends in the US, attended a seminar some years ago and told me that changed their lives and their therapeutic work. And so when they say something works, I take them seriously. And so I sign up for the next training, book my flights, and it completely changed my life to the applications of neuroscience to psychotherapy. From that point, I became more and more open to explore and to experiment with different forms of modalities. The important thing for me is, because they're very practical and personal, I use it on myself. If they work and they change me, then it can change other people. And the good thing of many of these modalities is we practice it when we're in training with each other. And so there's also a healing process that goes along the development and growing process. Now, I'm sharing this information as a learner because the realm of neuroscience is growing and new things are coming. And different modalities have a different scientific take on how the brain or nervous system is able to recalibrate trauma, disturbance with it. But the indication of a modality that's efficacious, it works. And individuals who experience it can tell of relief, of even resolution. And sometimes it is surprising, it's like magic. But it's the brain having that capacity to recalibrate and to bring about a reconsolidation of the memory networks that hold trauma and disturbance experiences there. So when I was first trained in EMDR, I worked as an individual who was experiencing acute flashbacks for more than 20 years. And he couldn't drive. And finally, at the insistence of his wife, his daughter, and his doctor, came in rather reluctantly. And I practiced my EMDR skills with him without really having too much expectations. And the session went on. He seemed to be pretty receptive to the process. When he came back the next time, he reported that his symptoms had stopped. There were no more flashbacks and things normalized. Now, that was puzzling for me, but it then helped me see how some processes, when they are harnessed, can recalibrate the nervous system towards recovery. That was magical, but there is a scientific explanation to what happened. And that's made me into a believer. And I've been open to be trained in a variety of different modalities, and each one has their own efficacy. And I've seen remarkable results with individuals who, even in the beginning, believe way. And most people come in skeptical, but a small belief, willingness, and a willingness to also look at resistance and defenses as simply just a natural default mode can open up the nervous system to restoration. Now, I think Glenn has already shared the different modalities and given a broad description of how they work. I'm going to move towards the next. Now, Glenn has already introduced these aspects, and although psychosensory researchers refer to healing processes that include bilateral stimulation that's used in EMDR, whether we're using eye movements, bilateral tapping, tapping on the knees, tapping meridian points as in TFT or EFT. Yet, psychosensory treatment has some of its origins in traditional Chinese medicine, and then it's practiced in energy psychology, and TFT and EFT comes from that field. Now, as we look at the next slide, well, there are three general broad approaches to treat mental health, and they include psychotherapy, which is more talk-oriented, psychopharmacology, which is pharmaceuticals, or medication, and then psychosensory, where tactile, touch, sensory-oriented processes are used. Now, we're going to consider that broadly, psychosensory processes can be grouped into two different groupings. Now, this may not include the range of processes that are out there, but these are some of the main ones. Havening, touch techniques, emotional freedom, TFT, EMDR, brain spotting, integral eye movement, somatic experiencing, matrix and re-imprinting, hypnotherapy, those and others. And then there's group two. In group one, a memory is targeted, a disturbance, a trauma memory, and then it's worked on. In group two, generally, no particular memory is targeted. Modalities used in this like meditation, mindfulness that use neurosensory methods, yoga, art therapy, dance movement therapy, biofeedback, neurofeedback, sound therapy, music therapy, breath work, and others. Okay, my interest is to share some of the effects and benefits of those in group one. Now, Bessel van der Kolk, who is one of the leading researchers in trauma, states that talk in therapy may not be enough. Talk's important because we have to communicate, engage, and attune to the client. But he shares how understanding and feelings are located in different parts of the brain. And people may understand the trauma, but the feelings need to emerge in treatment to get results. And that's why just talking and reviewing events may not help people very much, because people can't always translate feelings into words. And that's why he says that traumatic events are almost impossible to put into words. And if we try to get a person to talk about traumatic experiences without safety or resourcing, we could re-traumatize them. And then he goes on to say that traumatic events may simply defy all descriptions because the process of trauma recall tends to deactivate the Broca area of the brain. That's the part of the brain responsible for speech production. And then it compromises our ability to speak in general, and let alone speak about the traumatic event. And so talk therapy can inadvertently be re-traumatizing trauma survivors. To remember to retell a story before regulating the nervous system can make us feel that we are reliving the trauma experience all over again, posing the risk of re-traumatization. And that's important to realize. And when I work with individuals, helping them find safety, security, peace, strength, resources, and self-regulation are important. And then, before I go to another neuroscientist, consider this. Trauma has an impact on the right brain because disturbances and experiences are stored there. And when activated, then our system goes into dysregulation. The left brain which is a cortical system, may not always access and process disturbances when the right brain is activated, because they're not communicating. But the right brain may often need to be processed first for balance in the nervous system to be experienced. Then the cortical and the subcortical functions can be linked, and processing towards adaptation can happen. So when disturbance or trauma is activated into the system, the physical, emotional brain fires. We go into fight, flight, freeze, even fall. We become dysregulated. And then, in a sense, the body takes over the mind, and the mind cannot regulate. And so the mind becomes less. We become mindless. But when we can begin to regulate the subcortical area, and there is balance in that system, now the cortical area comes online, the prefrontal region comes online, and begins to integrate with the subcortical. Now they're communicating, where adaptability and resilience can be harnessed. Now, in this next slide, neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman specializes in vision and stress research, explains that when we step forward to encounter the world by walking, our eyes move back and forth and to guide us through space. Now, in his study of EMDR, he suggests that the act of stepping forward or moving into stressful situations in a positive way, when it's paired with lateral eye movements, may help resolve stress response. But think of it, when we're under stress and we move our bodies, we walk, we take a shower, we run, we exercise, we move to engage with people, we go to the restroom, we take a drink, we do something active. And if we sustain it enough, we will find that our nervous system then begins to slowly calm down. There. When we start to use psychosensory methods, our system gets activated. There's movement within. And it's a forward movement that allows a process of readaptation to occur, rather than for us to remain stuck and then we become paralyzed or frozen, or to move backwards in which we regress. Now, Dr. Huberman explains that the brain responds to this moving forward by suppressing activity in the amygdala, which is the fear or alarm center of the brain, and signaling to the reward area of the brain to release dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that plays a role in how we experience pleasure. By enabling us to move forward, there is a reward system. Our brains may actually reward us when we confront stress in adaptive ways in our lives. And this idea is important when considering optimism, courage, and hope for a better outcome in any therapy. And that's a placebo, the effect in treatment, the belief that this treatment can work for me, even though I have some skepticism is important. Now, as we move to the next slide, it's important to realize that every modality has its own scientific explanation. We can't always look what happens inside the brain unless there's equipment for us to measure movement and changes. It's interesting, in this particular research, Melvin Harper, the University of Colorado, measured the effects of stimulating various areas of the body to determine which areas activated delta waves the most. And the amount of the increase in the presence of delta waves from stimulating different areas was observed in this study. And this is interesting as we look at the next slide. And this is this research article, which is accessible on the internet. We go to the next slide to see some of the results. The baseline comparison is a person sitting down in a chair in a relaxed state. You notice that when different psychosensory processes were used, there was an increase in delta waves. Now, delta waves are experienced in deep sleep or the restful state of sleep. It's usually in the third stage or cycle of a sleep. Now, delta waves have a way of diffusing memory receptors in our nervous system when it's produced enough. It's interesting that gamut points, which is used in EFT, they notice that delta waves increase 1.1 times. Now, lateral eye movements, 12 to 20 times, right? Vibrating pads on hands, which you use in EMDR, 3 to 4 times. Now, look further up. Palms of the hand, we're rubbing it up to 5 times. Shoulders, we're using havening, 5 to 38 times. The cheeks, that's often used in havening, is a very sensitive area. There are C fibers that are very responsive to touch, up to 90 times there. But increase in delta waves are dependent on individual responses, and that can be variable. But this is interesting, that something actually happens in the brain chemically. Now, as we look at the next slide, the delta waves, tactile stimulation, tapping, eye movements are observed to create, as I mentioned, delta waves. Increases in delta waves are known to diffuse AMPA receptors that are memory networks that hold information of disturbance and trauma. And this helps desensitize traumatic memories. It's known to increase GABA and serotonin. So when I use neurosensory methods often, after a while, the person yawns or becomes sleepy and wants to rest. Then I realize that GABA is being produced. This allows for the incorporation of new memories and new beliefs. These processes can also depotentiate or diffuse trauma in the amygdala and help develop resilience. Okay, so this is to give you at least an indication of one research result that indicates what actually happens in the brain. Okay. Now, self-regulation is an important skill that we all can learn, and different modalities have different ways of bringing that regulation. And we don't have the time to go through each one of them. But I do have a natural grounding process, a regulatory process in which I help people find grounding, find calm, equilibrium within the nervous system. And when they become calm, they become more present to themselves, more mindful, more aware of what they are feeling, sensing, thinking, and experiencing, and even seeing. When this is done sufficiently, then it enables them to transcend and to find strength resource, be it the ability to regulate their feelings, their sensations, there's response flexibility, there's more intuition, discernment, empathy, and the like, as the prefrontal starts to come online and they become more resourceful. And so I teach people the GPS process to help them find a grounding that enables them to connect with the center. Now, we have time to just consider a grounding tool. I'm going to use one of the movements that was indicated in the research by Melvin Harper, and that is the gentle rubbing of hands. And try this. And if there's a disturbance, if you feel a disequilibrium in you, near distress, it's important to be able to move into this I call a brain-based mindful state, by being able to move away from the distress into a state of brain-based mindfulness. And it's a distraction where you're doing something psychosensory and you're also saying something out. So try this. Think of something that's somewhat distressing, like a 5 or 6 out of 10. Feel it. And when you sense it in your body, and what are you saying to yourself? Can't handle this. I'm not good enough. I'm scared. Just be aware of it. And what are you seeing? So we're moving, and we're going to move away from that. Going to have you just gently rub the palm of your hands. We use this in Haven. And I'm going to have you use the 5-second counting backwards. And count aloud if you're in the privacy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then I'm going to have you to think of something that's neutral or positive. Oh, just think of walking in your favorite place. It could be a park. It could be in your neighborhood. And as you walk in that place, I want you to count 1 to 20 as you picture yourself walking, and immerse yourself in that scene and count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And take a deep breath. How does it feel? And this is a very simple 2 exercises. And when you do experience something, we do have protocols that take you even into a deeper state of grounding. And so this is a little exposure. Okay. I'll hand this time back to Glenn.
Thank you, Dr. Harold. That was indeed very insightful. What I like about the presentation was not just the techniques or the approaches that has been presented, but also that every single one of them are well referenced, evidence-based. I think that's really important for those of us who are practitioners. We need to do due diligence, and also we need to be ethical. I just wanted to share this slide for all of us in case there are people. In fact, I'm getting private messages already on how to contact Dr. Robers. And here is the slide. We're just going to put it up here for a while. You can take a screenshot. This is the way that you can reach Dr. Robers. So thank you again, Dr. Roberts. Let's go onto the Pigeonhole platform right now and take a look at the top few voted questions. The one with the highest votes, 8 𝐸𝐿. Can psychosensory therapies be used as a preventative measure for mental health concerns? So we're not talking about treatment, we're talking about prevention. Dr. Roberts, would you like to answer this question?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I'm a believer in the traditional methods, and when I train and supervise counselors, I tell them they need to be competent in the mainstream counseling methods. But psychosensory therapies, because they do bring release of stress from the body and nervous system, it enables people to live more mindfully. And certainly when a person is clearing stress and tension regularly, it also enables their adaptive system to be working well, and then the autoimmune system is not compromised through chronic stress that's not released. And I teach people to use these methods routinely.
Yep, great, thank you. So we'll take the second one, 4 vote counts. What are some ways to integrate psychosensory principles into everyday life for well-being? Very close to the first one earlier on, maybe Dr. Roberts?
There are rituals that can be taught, and people use tapping rituals. They use grounding rituals, that's the one I expressed. They use rituals that may involve, I teach people across over deep breathing that's very energetic and also brings a sense of release. So there are psychosensory methods where it can be ritualized to enable people to engage in, say, like a brain exercise, where they're releasing tension and stress from the nervous system each day and also through the day. Some people do it 4 times a day.
Maybe if I can add in as well, Dr. Roberts, as a practitioner, I have learned from myself, and I've also kind of prescribed this to some of my clients, an integration of tapping. So I use TFT, unlike EFT, which has set up phrases and all that. So mine is more mindless in nature. Like when I'm watching TV, I can actually do this as well. As well as an integration of polyvagal techniques. Polyvagal, which is a lot of it has got to do with the nerve, the polyvagal nerves, particularly in the ear, or what we call the auricular region, to the facial muscles, because I get tense up quite a bit. And I kind of want to link this question to the other question, which has 5 votes. Can psychosensory therapies be used to treat anger? Those of you who know my past and even work with me closely, I do get flashbacks, I do get triggered, and my triggers are more fight related rather than flight related. So anger, impulsion in those areas, I get agitated quite a bit. So I use some calming techniques for myself, so like havening techniques, but mine particularly the shoulder rubs. I feel that is very soothing. I've also encountered working with, and this is treatment based, with young children, ADHD, as well as those with autistic on the spectrum disorder, but high functioning. They do very well with hugs. Now, I don't allude to knowing how to do hug therapy, but when you have that embrace going on, of course, appropriately with the child, and a kind of a tightness and intensity to that, it seems to work on them in calming them almost instantaneously. So it's a very quick intervention, very neat. Sometimes, parent to child, maybe you can try that out. That also is related to the third question. But maybe, Dr. Harold, do you have any thoughts about treating anger first?
Well, anger, there are several modalities that can treat that. And so far, the treatment of anger with psychosensory methods have been very effective. That means when a person wants to work with anger, I generally see it as very resolvable. But it does mean that we have to go back to memory networks in the past, where what is driving that anger? Where are the roots? And then we target the roots. The anger can be treated pretty effectively.
So what you're saying is not just the actual psychosensorial activity, but also through talk therapy.
Well, no, we have to go back to the roots, but in the roots, we clear it through the application of the methodology.
Yes. It's not just doing a couple of activities, right?
No. There are protocols.
Through a process.
There are protocols that are designed to get into the very roots.
Yep. We'll try to at least answer 80% of the questions here on the board within the next 10 minutes. On the extreme left, can psychosensory techniques be used in workplace settings to reduce stress, improve productivity, performance?
I teach people to use natural protocols to help them take even a minute or 2 minutes just to de-stress, to be able to use processes to anticipate, let's say they're going to a meeting of a difficult person, difficult boss, to be able to ground themselves, anticipate what's happening. And I do have a process that enables them to visualize the challenge they are going to face, so that there's some desensitization of their fears and their stress. So when there's a grounding, then to have them then imagine the strong self that will show up. There's a practicing effect when people start to rehearse that, because the same neurons form in imagination, and then it starts to be seen in actuality.
Well, at this point, I just wanted to say also in EDT, one of the modalities I helped to develop energy defragmentation therapy, we use a 4-window matrix that includes visualization, but also, like you said, a centeredness, a centering technique before they go to work. In fact, we use it as a morning routine and we prescribe it like for 21 days. Yeah, I know of some practitioners who incorporate that into like exercise movements. I mean, I do it too as well, right? Because sometimes when you activate certain parts, you get more alert, more in tune. And that, can I just link that to the last question on the bottom right? I'm a discipline mistress in a school and notice students who have childhood trauma display small behavior issues. How do I help them during talks, especially not to be re-traumatize them again?
Well, I guess the important thing is how we approach them. Our tone, our demeanor, our words can produce a reaction. Because very often when a child acts out, it's reflex. In other words, there's no forethought, and it may be trauma-driven. And at that stage, they need to be able to calm the nervous system down before they can reason out logically.
I'd like to add as well, and this will be the last one, that in some tools that we use in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, we utilize not just language, but also certain movements, like the swish technique or the tapping to kind of pace and to lead a client, or in this case, a student. So some of these combined with visualization and breathing techniques actually helps a person without even them knowing that it's being done on them. So, well, once again, thank you very much, Dr. Harold Roberts, for helping to answer all these questions. And I have seen some other questions. We'll try to answer them maybe offline. So thank you very much. Can we have the remaining slides up there? At this point in time, I just want to kind of share what we offer as the Academy. We have free counseling consultation for those of you who really need some help. It is a consult, so it's not really a therapy, but we do an intake so that we can help give you resources or maybe recommendations on what steps to take next. The link will be pumped in the chat box. A couple more others. I think I did share a little bit about EDT, energy defragmentation therapy. We run this like 4 times a year as a 1-day training course at a basic level, but also to complement this with your counseling or your therapy process, which is one-on-one. We do this in a safe group, and we utilize a lot of psychosensory approaches. Click on this, you get a free video intro training, and then you get to learn a bit more about this modality. Next, we also do want to share with you an upcoming subconscious acceleration workshop. This is something that we do from time to time, and it's free for the public. All you need is to have a small admin fee commitment. And this upcoming one is actually in the following week. I believe it's on the 8th of August. It's absolutely free. It's live in person, face-to-face, and it will be in town at our training center. Next. Last few, we also conduct WSQ Skills Future accredited counseling skills training. This is at the basic level, 2-day course. Again, it's in town, and you get to have a fully funded government funding Skills Future credits as well as WSQ. So do check this out as well for your qualification for this. And now, of course, we have our very own brand of NLP practitioner program. It's called Breakthrough NLP, as well as the Breakthrough NLP Master Practitioner, which is at more advanced level. But we all go through this basic level first. You can click on this link as well. We're going to send it to you, and you can read more for yourself for our upcoming and our last run this year in November. Thank you, everyone who stayed on all the way.